If you disappeared for 7 days and came back, your doctor might not recognize you, not because you lost a few pounds, but because your body literally rebuilt itself. The problem is almost none of this happens until you cross a very specific threshold that 99% of people never reach. And once you understand this, you'll never look at food or fasting the same way again. Look, here's a big problem. Most people are eating from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed. Coffee with creamer at 7 a.m., a snack at 10 a.m., lunch at noon, a sweetened latte at 3 p.m., dinner at 7 p.m., and maybe just a little something before bed. When you do this, your insulin is constantly spiking. Your digestion never shuts off, and your cells never get the signal to clean house. And your body, which was literally built for times of famine, has forgotten what it's like to actually rest and repair. So here's the question that nobody asks. What if the issue isn't necessarily what you're eating, but the fact that you never stop eating? What happens when you give your body something it probably has never had, or maybe it's been many years since you've had it, which is complete silence? No food, no calories, no signals, just water. That's the reset switch, and almost nobody flips it. So I went deep into this. I read the actual studies, including a brand new one out of the Queen Mary University in London, published in Nature Metabolism, where researchers tracked 12 healthy people through a full 7-day water fast and measured almost 3,000 different proteins in their blood every single day. What they found stopped me cold. The body didn't just lose weight. It goes through 9 distinct phases. It rewires proteins across every major organ, including the most greediest organ, the brain. And there's a single moment around the 72-hour mark of a fast where everything changes. I also pulled research from Dr. Walter Longo and USC from the largest fasting study ever done at the Buchinger Clinic in Germany with over 1,400 patients, and from Dr. Thomas Seyfried, a world-renowned cancer researcher at Boston College, who I actually got to interview on the Benazati Show, and whose work on metabolic therapy has shifted how serious oncologists think about fasting and disease. What I'm gonna walk you through right now isn't bro science. This is peer-reviewed. And the timeline is where it gets crazy. Look, this is probably my favorite lesson to record. I've recorded thousands of videos and podcasts over my last 17, 18 years in this space. This one right here is one of my favorite. I actually just got home from Gatlinburg, Tennessee. I delivered a keynote going through a variation of what you're gonna learn today. People flew in from all across the world to get this information. You're about to get that information and so much more right now. I'm very excited for you. Let's start with day 1, the first 24 hours without food. We call this the quiet beginning. So you wake up on day 1. Your last meal was the night before, let's say 8 p.m. But here's the funny thing. On the surface, it seems like nothing really is happening. Yeah, you may feel some hunger. Hunger comes in waves. It usually peaks around your normal meal times. It's not your stomach, by the way, it's your brain. It's the hunger hormone ghrelin, which I call a gremlin. It runs on schedule, but all hormones, including the hunger hormone ghrelin, they're pulsatile, meaning they come out, they go away. They go up, they go down. So it expects breakfast if you're used to eating breakfast. When breakfast doesn't come, the gremlin screams for about 20 minutes and then it backs off. Underneath the surface though, things are already moving. You see, just at the 14-hour mark of a fast, 2 really incredible benefits start to happen. The first benefit is a process called energy diversion. This is a super cool benefit you probably never heard of. Look, it takes a lot of energy to digest food. It takes blood flow, bandwidth, resources, energy to digest food, to assimilate those macronutrients to micronutrients and to produce stomach acids and send it to your cells for fuel. That's why the last time you feasted, you pigged out on a meal, was your first thought, man, I am so focused, energized, let's go get some work done? Of course not. Your first thought was, where's the couch? Put on the game, let's turn into a couch potato. At the 14-hour mark of a fast, you've completed digestion. This means the energy that was being used for digestion, remember, it's a lot of energy, that's complete. So the energy is now diverted to the brain. This is called energy diversion. So there's focus, there's clarity, there's a boost in energy. Second thing happening at the 14-hour mark is your levels of insulin begin to drop. What's so fascinating is so many people are looking to lose weight. How do I lose weight? What's the best diet to lose weight? How many calories should I have to lose weight? It's not about, those are the wrong questions. The only question you should be asking when it comes to weight loss and fat loss is, how do I lower insulin? You have hundreds of hormones in your body, but only one hormone tells your body store fat. That hormone is insulin. And when insulin is cold, when insulin is spiked, you are not burning fat. Always remember this, my friend. High insulin, fat storage. Low insulin, fat burning. At that 14-hour mark of a fast, you are lowering insulin. That means your body is now switching over to not using food for energy and stored fat, but to your sugar reserves. Your body has a backup system called your glycogen stores, and you store about 1,500 to 2,000 calories worth of backup fuel there. It's primarily in your liver and muscle cells. As insulin has dropped at the 14-hour mark, your metabolism says, oh, no food coming in. Let's switch over. Let's use those sugar reserves as fuel. And as we go through this fast, you're going to see why it's important to deplete those sugar reserves. So stay tuned for that. Then we have the 17-hour mark of this fast. There's a process in your body that gets ramped up at the 17-hour mark. It's called autophagy. Many of you have heard of autophagy, but I'm going to explain it in a way that you've never heard before that's really going to make a lot of sense. So the Greek definition for autophagy is eat thyself. That sounds pretty weird, Ben. Well, it's actually pretty marvelous and miraculous. You see, your body is so stinking smart. When it's not getting food energy, your body still needs to eat. Autophagy gets ramped up and your body starts eating damaged cells, damaged proteins, damaged mitochondria. I want you to think of Pac-Man going within your cells, looking for the damaged particles, looking for damaged proteins, using that for fuel. The best analogy I could ever give you for you to really understand autophagy, and I want you to learn this and then teach this to somebody you know because it's pretty cool, it's this right here. I want you to imagine your refrigerator. Maybe some of you are watching this video or listening to this in your kitchen. Open up your refrigerator. What do you see? Obviously, you see groceries, and every grocery has an expiration date on them. The eggs, the juice, hopefully you don't have juice, the produce. What would happen if you just decided, I'm not going to use any of these groceries. I'm going to let them all go beyond their expiration date. I'm going to let them expire. And then they all expire. But you don't throw them into the trash. No, you say, I'm just going to kind of shove them towards the back of the fridge, open up the drawers, shove them in the drawers, and then I'm going to go buy fresh, new groceries with new expiration dates and kind of like put them in front of the expired groceries, like hide the expired groceries, and then open up that fridge the week after. That's going to be a toxic environment. Disease will manifest in this environment. Would you agree? Well, your body is like this refrigerator. You have cells, proteins, mitochondria that all have expiration dates on them. The science shows that you have about 60 billion cells that need to go through this recycling process through autophagy every single day. And some of these cells are precancerous cells that turn into full-on cancerous cells. That's why world-renowned cancer researcher, I mentioned him earlier, I'm going to talk about him again later, Dr. Thomas Seyfried said, a long fast, like what we're talking about today, is one of the most effective ways to prevent diseases like cancer. It's the autophagy, and that autophagy increases throughout the fast. Can you believe we're just on day one and we're not even done? As you complete day one, at the 24-hour mark of a fast, you get some other benefits. First one is what it does for your digestive system. I already mentioned 14 hours in, you're done digesting food. 24 hours in, you've gone a full day of complete rest. So if you struggle with acid reflux, GERD, bloating, constipation, any digestive issues, a lot of that gets improved at the 24-hour mark because you're finally giving your digestive system a break. It's like a corporate worker that works 9 to 5 and goes to her car at 5:30 p.m. exhausted, ready to go home and rest. And she gets a phone call from her boss. Hey, we got a project that just came in. We need you to come back to the office and work for another 5 hours. So she puts in 5 more hours. Now it's 10:30 p.m. at night. She's exhausted and she gets the same phone call from her boss. We need you to come back in for another project. This would destroy her. This is exactly what you've been doing to your digestive system. But if we gave her 2 weeks off to rejuvenate herself and recover and repair, then she would function and fire on all cylinders. That's what you're doing with this fast. You're giving your digestive system 2 weeks off. Well, in this case, 7 days. So what happens, there's kind of this intestinal scrubbing that takes place. So things like leaky gut and autoimmune disease, that improves dramatically just 24 hours in. There's one more thing happening at that 24-hour mark. Human growth hormone. Look, there's a lot of people, wealthy people and celebrities, and even in some cases athletes, that will pay thousands of dollars every month for human growth hormone. Makes sense. Human growth hormone is a very powerful anti-aging hormone, fat-burning hormone, muscle-building hormone, but there is an issue with injecting human growth hormone. Number one, it costs a lot of money. Number two, your body will produce less human growth hormone when you get it exogenously. Well, get this. Studies show a 24-hour fast will raise human growth hormone levels by 2,000% in men and 1,300% in women. That is pretty remarkable. Now let's shift into day 2. This is where it gets even more interesting. By day 2, those sugar reserves, the glycogen stores I spoke about in your liver and muscle cells, you've depleted that. You've burned through them. Now your body's looking around, your metabolism's like, okay, what next? What do I do for fuel? It flips the switch. It stops running on sugar and it starts running on fat. Yeah, the fat around your love handles. The even worse fat around your organs called visceral fat. Visceral fat is the most inflammatory, nasty fat that you have in your body. It's like a parasite. Fat, white fat, that's wrapped around your heart, your kidneys, your pancreas, your other vital organs. Well, at this point, your body starts pulling fat from your organs, pulling fat from your love handles. Those fatty acids are sent to your liver. Your liver uses it for fuel. And then your liver produces ketone bodies, ketones. Ketone bodies are really important to have that circulating in your bloodstream. It fuels the brain because beta-hydroxybutyrate, which is one of the 3 ketone bodies, crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it helps you feel mentally sharp and focused. But when you're producing ketones, one of the things that it does that you may or may not have heard of is that it actually tells your mitochondria, the little battery packs within your cells, to reproduce. It beneficially stresses those mitochondria and creates mitochondrial biogenesis, which simply means the birth of new mitochondria. Why is that important? The more mitochondria your body is producing, the more energy via ATP it produces. The more energy, the higher your basal metabolic rate, which means the more calories you burn without having to track calories, just sitting on the couch. And when I looked at a study that came out of China, researchers tracked ketones during prolonged fasting, and it found that beta-hydroxybutyrate levels, BHB, the ketone body, increased up to 51 times over the baseline. 51 times. You are now burning your own body fat for fuel. Stored fat that might have been on your body for over a decade. The fat around your organs, the fat on your hips, the visceral fat I mentioned that drives heart disease and cancer. Your body is now actively using that for fuel. Not because you ran a marathon or did a CrossFit workout, because you simply stopped eating. But this is where most people quit, day 2. They might experience headaches or brain fog, cold hands, maybe cravings that come out of nowhere, maybe something like the keto flu where you lose a lot of electrolytes. For some people, this is part of that metabolic transition. I'll share with you later on what you can do to prevent that or overcome that. But before we move on to day 3, there are 2 other incredible things happening just on day 2. At the 30-hour mark of a fast, your brain starts producing massive amounts of something called brain-derived neurotropic factor, BDNF. BDNF is like Miracle-Gro for your brain fertilizer. It helps you become more creative, more focused, more alert. It helps your neurons in the brain fire and wire together. And it makes sense because you've gone 30 hours without food. Your body, your innate intelligence thinks, whoa, we must be going through a famine. You see, your body doesn't know about that you could go on your phone, click the Uber Eats or DoorDash button and have somebody knock on your door with food in 45 minutes, or you could walk over to your pantry or refrigerator and eat something. It doesn't understand that. Your body is hardwired for the old school. Every single cell, every single DNA is hardwired for the old school. So it thinks you're going through a famine. So it actually increases BDNF so you could stay alert, focused, energized, and you could go out there and hunt and kill in order to stay alive. Because the number one priority for your human body is survival. The cool thing is that you're going to use all that energy and focus to just feel awesome. If you've done a long fast, it's hard to explain this BDNF surge. I've done it many times, and it's kind of like an experience that makes you more connected to God, connected to the environment. It is something where I can't put it into words, but it makes me wonder, and it inspires me and convinces me that this is why every religion in the entire world practices some form of fasting. I believe it's because of this BDNF, although they didn't know about that back then. One more thing happening at the end of day 2, at the 48-hour mark, is this right here. This is going to blow you away. You ready? We have little receptor sites in the brain called D2 receptor sites. D2 stands for dopamine. And dopamine is a hormone your body produces that helps with happiness, motivation, gratitude, drive, focus. So many people struggle with dopamine resistance, similar to insulin resistance, where they've gotten so many dopamine hits from their social media feed, processed foods, drugs, alcohol. Now they need more stimulation to feel the same way. Their receptor sites are burnt out. Research shows at the 48-hour mark of a fast, those D2 receptor sites in the brain for dopamine get reset. This means you need less stimulation to experience happiness, joy, motivation, and drive. It's called dopamine fasting. Super cool. Day 3. This is the day, my friend. This is where almost every serious fasting researcher draws the line, including the team behind Nature Metabolism in the study that I mentioned. They specifically wrote that the real systemic changes across every organ in over 1,000 proteins only kicked in at the 72-hour mark. 3 days. That was the threshold. So what actually happens? Well, first, your brain switches over. It is now primarily running on ketones instead of glucose. And the wild thing is this: these ketones are a cleaner source of energy, which results in a mental state like you've never felt before. Not jittery, not hyped, just like clear. Some people call it monk mode. Others say it feels like static getting turned down. Second, and this is the part where I want you to really pay attention, autophagy ramps up significantly. I already gave you an explanation of autophagy. Well, what's happening here, and this is research according to Dr. Walter Longo from USC, you have cells in your body that are called senescent cells. I call them zombie cells in my book, Metabolic Freedom. These zombie cells don't have any benefits. Actually, they have only drawbacks. These zombie cells could infect other cells that could lead to cancer cells or autoimmune cells. We have them within the immune system. They're called immunosenescent cells. Well, according to the research of Dr. Walter Longo and others, your immune system entirely regenerates itself at the 72-hour mark. You have that autophagy, the Pac-Man eating those bad zombie cells. The bone marrow releases stem cells and it gets rid of those zombie cells. This is pretty remarkable. This is so important that the man who actually discovered how this works, a Japanese biologist named Yoshinori Ashumi, won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016 for his research on this. Yeah, the Nobel Prize for describing what your body does when you stop eating for 3 days. Cancer researchers like the one I mentioned earlier, Dr. Thomas Seyfried at Boston College, believe autophagy is one of the most powerful anti-cancer mechanisms your body has built in. God put it there. Why? Because cancer cells are like metabolic cripples. They almost exclusively run on glucose and an amino acid called glutamine. They can barely use ketones at all. Seyfried's lab has shown in mouse models of brain cancer, of metastatic cancer, of glioblastoma, that when you put the body in deep ketosis through fasting and ketogenic diets, you can shrink tumors. Some of his mice were essentially cured. There are now clinical trials on humans built directly on his press pulse protocol, which begins with the 3 to 5 days of water fasting. Now, I'm not telling you fasting cures cancer, and none of this is medical advice. I'm just telling you that Boston College professor who's been studying this for 30 years thinks this mechanism is so important It should be standard care for certain brain tumors. That should make you stop and think. I know it sure did for me when I interviewed him on my podcast. Now, what about hunger? Here's something that's cool. On day 3, this is where most people report that the hunger vanishes. It's just gone, like a switch gets flipped. That's because your hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin, they recalibrate. Your body adapts. It accepts that no food is coming. It gets quiet. It understands I'm using fat for fuel. Then we have days 4 and day 5, the deep reset. This is where things almost get spiritual. Your growth hormone that I talked about earlier, that goes through the roof. In one of the classic studies published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation, researchers measured growth hormone in healthy men during fasting. I shared with you what happened after 24 hours. Well, this study looked at after 2 days, 48 hours. It showed that growth hormone production is still going up about 5-fold, a 500% jump. In another study, women saw a 14-fold increase in human growth hormone during fasting. Yeah, your body is essentially injecting itself with what athletes and celebrities pay thousands of dollars a month, and in some cases to get illegally. And it's doing it because growth hormone has one job during a fast: protect your muscle so you could burn the fat but preserve your lean tissue. Now stack that on what's already happening in your immune system, and you've got extraordinary benefits. I mentioned Dr. Walter Longo. He talks about this long fast triggering your stem cells to wake up and rebuild your entire immune system from scratch. Longo said this, and this is a direct quote: "When you fast long enough, your body destroys old, damaged, inefficient immune cells. And then when you eat again, the stem cells literally generate a new immune system, a new one." That's why he ran trials in cancer patients fasting before chemotherapy, because the new immune system that came back was younger and more resilient than the one they had before. During days 4 and 5 of this fast, you are in the deepest cellular spring cleaning your body is biologically capable of. You're running on ketones. Your inflammatory markers, measured in over 1,000 patients in the Buchinger Clinic in Germany, are dropping. Your blood pressure is dropping. Your visceral fat is being mobilized for fuel. Most people on day 4 or 5 say they actually feel good, light, calm, sometimes euphoric. I know I felt that way. Now, some people can't sleep, but it's not from anxiety. It's from elevated alertness. Your body thinks you need to go out there and hunt and kill, remember? Now we have days 6 and 7. You're in the deep end now, my friend. Average weight loss in that Nature Metabolism study, 5.7 kilograms. That's 12.5 pounds in 7 days. But the weight is the least interesting part. At this point, your stem cell activity is peaking. Your insulin sensitivity is being completely rewired. Your gut microbiome. The Buchinger researchers showed this in a separate paper. It showed that the gut microbiome is fundamentally restructuring itself. You see, the bad bacteria that thrive on sugar and carbs get starved out, and the species that thrive in a fasted state, they expand. I'll say it in a different way. Good cells get stronger, bad cells don't adapt. Your mitochondria, those little energy factories I spoke about earlier that are within all of your cells, except your red blood cells, they get cleaned up through a process called mitophagy. Autophagy is cellular repair. Mitophagy is mitochondrial repair. The broken mitochondria get destroyed, the healthy ones replicate. This is, quite literally, one of the deepest healing states that the human body can ever enter, without a drug, without an injection, without a surgeon. And the people who've done this consistently, like the 1,422 patients tracked by the Buchinger Institute over a year, showed measurable improvements in weight, blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, and self-reported well-being across the board. By day 7, you walk into a blood draw and you are literally not the same person you were a week ago. Now, here's what I really want you to understand. This is not a weight loss video. I mean, yes, you'll lose weight. Obviously, I just shared with you that will be the case. But that's not the point. This is the point. Being overweight is a symptom. It's downstream of something deeper. The thing that's broken in most people is metabolic flexibility. Your body has forgotten to switch fuels. It's stuck on sugar and glucose. It's inflamed. It's insulin resistant. It's running 24/7 because it's never been given a chance to stop. A 7-day fast doesn't just help you lose 12 pounds. It rebuilds the operating system underneath the weight. You don't have a weight problem. You have a weight symptom. Your body isn't broken. It just hasn't been given this silence in a very long time. Okay, let's get practical and tactical here. If you're gonna attempt this, and I'll give you a much easier alternative in a second, here's how it actually works. Step 1, start after dinner. Your last meal is the night before. I recommend that meal be mostly protein and fat, low in carbohydrates. So that's because you could burn through those sugar reserves much faster. Then you wake up in the next morning and you don't eat. The first 24 hours are just mostly mental. Step 2, consume water and unflavored electrolytes and minerals during your fast. This is the most important part that people get wrong. You need sodium, potassium, magnesium. Without electrolytes, you may get headaches, leg cramps, and the dreaded keto flu I spoke about earlier. So put high quality salt in your water. Take a high quality magnesium supplement before bed. I also recommend a high quality unflavored electrolyte packet that you can mix with water. Step 3, light movement only during the fast. No workouts, nothing too strenuous. Maybe some walking, some yoga. You don't want to use energy to throw around weights. You want to use energy for healing. So don't do high intensity exercise, but light movements, especially out in nature, are beneficial. Step 4, try to sleep more. You might be tired the first day or two, so use that as an advantage to get more sleep and recovery. Step 5, when you break the fast carefully. You could screw up a lot of your results by breaking the fast the wrong way. And I see a lot of people do this the wrong way. After your 7 days, do not eat pizza. Do not eat a whole bunch of meat, and I love meat. Start with foods that are easy to digest. Introduce those foods very slowly. Some of the best foods to break a long fast with are going to be bone broth, maybe a small piece of fruit. I wouldn't go with any raw vegetables, but I would go with maybe like 2 or 3 like soft scrambled eggs and maybe half an avocado, or maybe even like a high quality protein shake. And it might also be a good idea, if you have it, to take digestive enzymes. You want to do this for about 2 days in a row after you break the fast. And then on day 3, go back to your normal way of eating. That's because your enzymes, in your gut microbiome, your bacteria they've starved down during your 7-day fast. And you don't have the enzymes to break down high quality protein and fat or carbs. So go low and slow. Now, what if you're too intimidated to do 7 days? Can you get other benefits in different ways? Yes, you don't have to go full on 7 days to get many of these benefits. If you just did a 24-hour fast once or twice a week, that triggers that 5-fold growth hormone release I spoke about earlier. If you completed a 3-day water fast, that 72-hour fast, maybe once a quarter or once a year, that triggers that renewal of the immune system. So maybe you do that. Personally, for me, the sweet spot for a long fast is 5 days. And in some cases, I'll do just 3 days. And I've taken hundreds of people through this, and the results have been transformational. Look, if you have diabetes, if you're on medication, if you're pregnant, underweight, have a history of an eating disorder, this might not be a good idea for you. Talk to your practitioner, your health practitioner, before doing something like this. It's not for everyone, but I got to tell you, extended fasting, what I call block fasting, is the most powerful tool that no supplement, surgery, or Ozempic can replace. Now look, if you're watching this and listening to this and you're thinking, Ben, there's no way I'm doing a 7-day fast. You're not alone, I get that. Most people don't have to be that extreme. Because the real problem is not that you're not fasting long enough, it's that your body's not getting the right signals to switch to fat burning in the first place.